All right, I want to welcome everybody who's online right now with us. I am Kelly Schwartz, owner and CEO of Schwartz Consulting Group. Uh, for those of you who don't know me, we have practice management and work with dental offices, about 750 throughout the country. My good friend, brother in a lot of ways, Greg Aden, is the owner and CEO of Aden Leadership. Greg and I go back 30 plus years. We both grew up in the hospitality industry, learned a lot of skills while working with Marriott Corporation, and then going on and advancing our careers in different areas. Greg and I reconnected recently through the power of technology, social media, and so forth. We were able to reconnect, rekindled our long-term friendship. Greg and I played golf together all the time, vacationed a few times. I'm good friends with his father, used to play golf with him all the time. But what I love most about Greg is just, what really attracted me when I started seeing Greg's stuff online was his servant leadership. And it parallels so much about what we do in the dental industry and in leadership and business in general, that I reached out to him and said, Greg, I really feel my friends, my clients, my business partners could benefit from what you have to offer. So Greg and I spent some time together. We did our first part series a few weeks ago, which was really, really well received. You can find it on our YouTube channel under kellyschwartz.com. Click YouTube, and Greg's first session is on there as well. But I am going to turn it over to Greg. Greg is just an outstanding guy, a wealth of knowledge. A lot of people pay big bucks to hear what he has to say, because when Greg speaks, people listen. So Greg, take it away, my friend.
Oh man! Well, first of all, thank you for telling the audience that you don't think we're very good looking, because I have.
Said you, not me.
Oh, okay. I thought you said we, and I just noticed, and I have one of my biggest fans on the show with us today, and that's my mother. So
hi.
She would definitely disagree with that, because that would make her the creator of someone not.
Well, I'm going to recant, because if you'd have warned me Mom was online, you are the most handsome man I've ever seen, Greg.
Well, it's a little awkward now, but we'll go with that. And also online with us is the man that's made my mom happy for the last 47 years. So welcome to the show, Joy and George Fitzgerald. Great to have you from Loveland, Colorado. So here we go. The topic tonight is courageous conversations, and why courageous conversations are so important. And what I do is because it's the cornerstone of leadership. If we cannot communicate, or we choose not to communicate with the people that we're leading, or our co-leaders, it's impossible to get our points across. And a lot of it comes from the fact that we know how, we just don't want to. Or we want to, or we just don't know how. So hopefully over the next 40 some minutes, you'll be able to take a tool or two away, or gain some knowledge that will help you become more able and more willing to have courageous conversations. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So there's kind of four components of what I do, and it's courage, curiosity, productivity, and leadership. And you can read there for yourself, but the essence of this is to learn the importance of being courageous, or having courage in your conversations. And the curiosity comes from, do I really want to have a relationship with this person to the point where I will prepare and understand where the other person is coming from? And a lot of people say, well, what does all this courageous conversations have to do with why you're here? Says the leader, pointing at you, and we want to be productive. Well, absolutely. These conversations make us more productive. They make the companies more powerful. And again, selfish to me to a certain degree, because I'm all about helping leaders become better leaders. And this will absolutely help leaders become more powerful and more clear in their word. So when I show you this next slide, I just want you to look at the top three comments and look at the two people and ask yourself, does the following look or sound like you? Now, this young man, this young woman could be partners. They could be colleagues. One could be a client. One could be somebody buying something. But what happens is we meet like this, We have intention, and we're not having any conversation, much less courageous conversation. So it's easy to see that they're not communicating. But the question I want to ask is, do you procrastinate? Would you like more support? And do you often delegate conversations that you're either, again, not prepared to have or just don't want to have? So the real challenge is, in my work, is what are the reasons to do the work? What do you really want to try and accomplish? And so I call it shifts. And in my work, you can make shifts now. You don't have to go to a seminar. You don't have to read a book. You can decide, I want to be more courageous. I will be more courageous. These conversations mean a lot, because ultimately in leadership and in life, the only thing that truly matters is our relationships. And how do you make them better? It's not by avoiding conversation. God knows that's not true. And it's not being the only person that talks. We know that's not true either. So what I want to help you with is understanding that the shifts that you can make if you want to will help you have more confidence. You'll come to more agreement. And notice I don't say understand expectations. You'll have more agreement. You'll improve relationships, as I already said. It's easier to come to have conflict resolution. And in fact, I believe you will avoid conflict the more courageous you are with your word. Because in my opinion, you're listening to the person in front of you, you're interested in helping that person in front of you, and therefore you eliminate the number of conflicts. So if they're not there, you don't have to resolve them. And then, as I've already pointed out, much higher productivity for you, your team, and your organization. And again, why are you there? This is just a quick snapshot. Kelly introduced me as to who I am today. I have 30 years in hospitality. Yes, it started in that one famous week in Washington, D.C. in the late 80s when I met Kelly. But who I've become recently is because of these two little guys that I'm holding in my arms on the bridge. Those are my sons. Brooks is on the left and Jackson's on the right. And what I do for a living is really just help people become better leaders. I bring all my tools to work every day, and I listen to a leader as to say, what is it that you want to learn today? And then I do a fair amount of speaking, as Kelly said, and I love being in front of people, not because I want to be in the front of the room, but it's an honor for me to be in front of the room, helping people understand what's possible if they really want to do the work. Okay, 4 shifts. And Kelly, I know you know a lot about the first one, empathy, language and emotions, and listen. And we're going to go through each and every one of those. And so you can apply this to the topic tonight, and that's courageous conversations. So shift 1, we create empathy and be humble with a desire to engage, understand the balance between discipline and love, parenting. And a segue here, and I'm going to turn it over to Kelly to have him comment on empathy and how empathy works well in his consulting for his dentist practices and their patients. But I believe parenting and leadership are joined at the hip. There's an incredibly beautiful balance between love and discipline, and you'll see it play out in the next slide. But notice you have a choice to create empathy. We have a choice to be humble, and we have a choice to engage. And think about those that are listening that have children, those that have partners, those that have delicate relationships. When are you really empathetic? When are you actually being humble? And in my words, which is one of my 5 leadership principles, that means you're putting someone else first. It's not about you, leaders. So think about it from that point of view. Kelly, your comments or your 2 cents on empathy, please.
Well, one of the confusing things for a lot of people is the difference between empathy and sympathy, right? Where empathy is understanding how somebody feels, but sympathy is kind of feeling sorry for. And it's really important, both dealing with your staff, understanding where they're coming from doesn't mean you need to agree. Or with a patient has a concern of money or fear, be empathetic, but don't feel sorry for. right? You want to make sure that you understand, as Greg says, be humble with a desire to engage. You want to actively listen to what they're saying, understand, maybe even paraphrase, but don't allow it to change how you feel in regards to caring for them, if that makes sense. Because I can't feel your pain, but I can understand it. Anybody who's going through a hard time financially, emotionally, or physically, I can understand it, but I don't necessarily have to feel sorry for, right?
Yep.
And so where somebody says, man, that's a lot of money, I can't afford that, sympathy would be, hey, I agree, I can't either. Where empathy would be more like, hey, I understand it is a lot of money, but let me help you find a way to make some shifts.
Yep. Well said. Sounds like there's a blog there or podcast, and where we could just talk about the differences between the two. It's important.
Absolutely.
So here's kind of a slide that helps put it all together. Understanding empathy and humility and why it's important. And on the left-hand side, going vertical is discipline. On the lower axis, going horizontal is love. And just quickly, if we have a little of both, we can manage the situation, or we can manage someone. And those of you listening, if you are listening to this, hopefully you believe you're a leader at the very beginning, or the very simple part of it. We stopped managing people a long time ago. We manage process. We don't manage people. And if there's too much discipline and not enough love, then you rule. And I believe everyone on the line would agree that we don't have rulers in this world anymore, at least not in the United States of America. And then if there's too much love and not enough discipline, then you're a pleaser, or you appease people, as Kelly just alluded to. And what's right in the middle is in my work, where people play the most because it's comfortable. It's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they think then if they're supportive, they're a great leader. Well, there's much more to being a leader than just supporting somebody, being there for someone. And in my work, and John Eads wrote a great book, it's called Building the Best. It's about 8 principles of elevating those around you. And this work came from him, and he'll be speaking at the conference, the leadership conference I'm hosting in November here. But he says that our reason for leadership is to elevate those around us. So if we can do that with our word, if we can do that with our empathy for others, in the spirit of a courageous conversation, that's shift number 1. How do you elevate everyone around you with your conversation? And remember, if you do it with empathy and humility, and for those that are listening intently, I'll say it again, leadership is not about you. It's about those in your chair, so to speak. It's those that are working for you, working with you, and your followers. And for the parents out there, it's what are your responsibilities as parents? It's to elevate your children, not to appease them, not to rule them, not to manage them, but get them ready to be better for tomorrow. Shift number 2. If you know any of my work, my 3 core areas are language, behavior, and relationships. And this one is to be aware of what language are we using. And one of my favorites is and I want people to write this down. There's a lot of people who speak in I thinks versus I believes, or even better, I know. And it's interesting, a lot of people lead with I think because they're not sure, they're not confident about what they're going to say next. And my invitation to those people are, don't say anything.
You know, Greg, that's a good point. When our doctors are looking and communicating with patients, when they say I think or I know, because science and dentistry are not exact in that regards. But when somebody like Dr. Paxson, who's with us tonight, says, Kelly, I believe this is the best way to go in my opinion, or Kelly, this is what I would do if it were my mouth, there's no questioning that. I can question what you think, I can question how you feel, but I really can't question about what you believe.
No, beautiful.
I've heard you say it a few times, and it's been a point that I've always tried to do, but it's one that I've really made concrete thanks to you.
Well, I believe it's good for you to communicate this way. I believe it is just important to say what is in our heart we know is true. and stop dancing around the edges with I think. And it's fun because as you watch TV, you watch the people that are very intelligent and they're leading our country to think a certain way based on their think. And I believe it's time to just say what it is you know is true, or skip to the next step, meaning I have nothing to offer.
Well, even when you say I believe, I don't have to agree with you, but it doesn't mean you're instantly wrong. If I think, I can say, well, I think different, and it becomes a whole different conversation.
Yep. And ultimately, what is true. And there really is only a few truths, and you can have yours and I can have mine, but at the end of the day, we can explore what really is. So a little side note there. This is someone who is absolutely ineffective with his approach, but yet this person is in every single organization. And as we speak, this person is doing exactly this. He's trying to have a conversation. It's ineffective. He's asking all the questions that do what? It puts the other person, you can't see them, but he's behind the ineffective question banner, if you will. And all he's doing is creating what? Angst. He's making this person be defensive. Or this person is ruling by asking all these ridiculous questions. And yes, I recognize that this leader is just needing or demanding information. And yes, I guess it's in his or her right to do so. But the purpose of tonight's seminar isn't to how to be ineffective with your finger pointing and questions. The fact, what we're trying to get to is how can we be more courageous and more effective with our word through conversation. So these are some of the questions that we ask people all the time. We may not do it with the finger pointing and the glare, but it's our intent with our language and the words we choose, the timing we choose, and how we make someone else feel. And again, remember the first shift was empathy.
Well, it's funny, Greg, whenever I've, being a parent now that my kids are older, one of the things that I find is really funny is that when I would ask them, why did you do that? And they would say, I don't know. They didn't know. They really had no clue on why they did something, right? Which I think is kind of funny. Why'd you do that? I don't know. They have no clue why they did it. That's being part of being a kid growing up.
My mom's smiling on the down below, and she would probably tell you that she knows the person who has asked her why more than anybody else in this world is this now 57 going on 58-year-old son. But that's how I learned. But I will say this openly. When I stopped asking my two boys why, because then their first response is, I'm sorry. And we don't want anyone to be sorry. We want them to do what? We want them to learn. So next time they understand what not to do instead of having a response to why.
Right.
So anyway, it's impossible to talk about leadership without bringing up parenting, in my opinion.
I agree.
So similar to our last X and Y axis here, this is where courageous conversations could come from if you are really good at it. You understand your interests and you understand their interests. And when there's a little of both, not enough conversation, you tend to avoid. No one wins. It's a lose-lose. When there's too much focus on self, arrogance, ego, narcissism, whatever, you win and they lose. And when you say, I'm just going to focus on them and not really worry about me, you lose and they win. And that's appeasing. And that's a weak way to lead. Or like the other one, in support in the middle, we can just do a little of both and compromise. And we're even taught to, well, just you guys work it out, compromise. Okay, well, that's okay. But I'm not responsible for helping leaders be okay. My responsibility is to make good leaders great leaders, or help leaders become better leaders. And the way to do that is to focus on collaboration.
Well, I think, it's really interesting. I want to take a pause there. You said, how are you doing today? Okay. Who wants to be just okay? If I said, how were your grades? Well, they're okay. Nobody wants okay. And so many people today are talking about, well, I want to get back to normal. Who even wants normal? I want better than it used to be, right? And to your point, when you focus on others, you win. And when you focus on yourself, you lose. So if you and I were afraid to speak because of how we feel, we can't share knowledge, right? And then others don't get help. Or if we focus on, well, I don't want to tell the patient they need work because they might say no, well, then they're going to be compromised. Their health is going to be compromised. You're the expert. You're the professional. You need to share with people what you believe in, what you would do if it were your mouth. Focus on how you're helping them, not worrying about how they're going to help you. Same thing when talking to your staff. You know, a lot of people look at reviews or getting written up. You know, back in our Marriott days, I was written up a time or two for some silly stuff. I got written up by the general manager of the hotel because my hair was too long. It touched the collar of my shirt. And I thought, man, how stupid is that to write me up for that? But I learned something from that about what is the benefit of getting written up for poor performance. Do you know this one, Greg? The benefit of being written up is I wasn't fired, so I was giving a chance to change and improve. Because they could have fired me for having hair too long or, you know, coming in 10 minutes late. Instead, they said, hey, you're worth it to us, so here's the improvement I need from you.
Nice.
If you want to be here, right?
Yep.
Where as an owner of a business, you know, you're busy, you might be afraid, and you might settle, which compromise, sometimes owners of business compromise on what they want versus what they need and even what they will put up with. But the good part is when, you know, Dr. Paxson pulls me aside or Dr. Heck pulls me aside and says, Kelly, you know, you're doing this and this isn't the way we want things. So here's what we need, which is, I think, where you're going with the win-win. If you want to work here, here's what's required. Then it's up to me to meet those requirements. Because as an owner or as a leader, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't like to compromise. I want to work towards that win-win. If I own the business, this is what I need from you. And if you want to do it, great. And if you don't, I understand we can still be friends, but let's just kind of go different directions because we're on a different level here.
Well, and you bring up an opportunity to further discuss the definitions of compromise and collaborate. But if you meet someone who wants to partner with you, you're probably looking at someone who wants to collaborate. If you're looking for someone who just wants to be friends or acquaintances, perhaps that's more of a compromise. I personally love to collaborate. Why? I get a chance to learn something from my partner. I get to learn something from someone who's going to help my business grow, and I'm going to help his or her business grow. And dare I say, what Kelly and I are doing here, this is our second of two, and who knows how many more we'll do. We're collaborating.
Yeah, I hope
we're simply collaborating. He's focused on what he wants to accomplish. I'm focused on what I want to accomplish, and we're putting something together that we hope we planned. It's beneficial for those that are tuning in. So,
and I'm going to throw in a kind of selfless plug, but what I wanted from you, Greg, was to help my doctors, my friends, my business owners that we work with hear something in a different way, that even though me and you are in two totally different industries, the benefit of good leadership helps everybody, right? And
Amen.
So many of us in the dental industry, we hear the same 50 speakers saying the same thing regurgitated, and you're giving a great information with a different voice and a different spin that's so important. And I tell my friends all the time, and my kids especially, you need to learn to be a sieve, not a sponge. Let the crap flow through,
yeah.
You know, and only keep the good stuff, where a sponge holds on to everything and it can frustrate you. So,
well, then you end up throwing it, as my mom does when she comes over to my house. She finds my old sponges and throws them away, and because they're not effective anymore. So it's
Mom, remind me to tell you some stuff I found at his house one day.
Oh boy, I thought that might never come up, but here
it wasn't gonna, but you just made it too easy.
Okay, well, let's move on here to shift number 3, shall we? Thank you. All right. So why would a leadership coach or business consultant talk about emotions? Because frankly, ladies and gentlemen, that's where a lot of our stuff, if you can use another word that starts with S, comes from. We allow it to boil up inside of us. We allow our emotions to take over, and then we say things in the moment. We react unkindly, or we never react kindly or not, or otherwise, because we just don't know what to do. So if you really want to relate, you really want to behave in a way that's collaborative, or you really want to be courageous, we need to understand where it's coming from. And our beliefs come from one of two places. It's either love or fear, period. Now, fear has a lot of friends: ego, narcissism, etc. And love has a whole lot of things like joy or joyous or friends, or all sorts of emotions. But understanding where our emotions come from, and how to not keep them under control, but just understand how powerful they are, that's the shift number 3. A lot of people get emotional, fly off the handle, they get emotional and walk out of the building, and nothing gets resolved. So that's why we're going to spend a few minutes on this one.
Greg,
So this
I don't know if this plays into it. One of the things I've learned is that, one of my emotions that comes up regularly is anger, right? I get angry or frustrated. But what I have learned is that I'm not really angry, I'm hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Something is hurt, and then my reaction is anger. Can you maybe take a minute and talk about that if that's in your wheelhouse?
Sure. In fact, a lot of times I will listen for where someone is coming from, and I ask myself, is she coming from a place of love or fear? Jealousy, anger, frustration, disappointment, lack of patience, all of that comes from fear. So what I asked you to consider is, what are you afraid of? And when you think about what it is you're truly afraid of, and you're honest with yourself, and I do a lot of mirroring. And what I mean is, there's a mirror in my home when I'm needing to have a difficult conversation with the most important person in my life, which is me. I go to the mirror and I ask myself, what are you afraid of? Why are you asking this person so many delicate questions about him or her? It's not about her. It's not about him. It's about you. What are you afraid of, Kelly? And in this case, you. But when we ask ourselves, why am I being jealous? Or why am I being insecure? Or why am I getting angry? It typically means you're afraid of something. And so if you have a loving spouse, you guys can stop right then and say, where's this coming from? Without doing the pointing finger, ask the loving question. Where is this coming from?
And I think as business owners, and I'm trying to speak for my dentist, there are times where my clients, friends, because I do consider them friends, get angry at their staff because of disappointment. And the disappointment is the staff didn't do X, Y, and Z, and the staff may not understand the cause and effect that can hurt the patient and or the practice. And so I don't believe any staff member intentionally does something to anger you, but they don't understand cause and effect, which is part of your role as a business owner, is helping your team understand your vision and how what they do plays a role in the overall success of your business.
Well, yes. And training comes into play. Personal, professional development comes into play for them. But hey, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, leader, look in the mirror and ask yourself, have you done everything to make your staff, your team, most effective, most efficient? And how do you do that? I will point the finger at me and say, as a leadership coach, it's imperative for owners and leaders to understand how they're saying things. What are they saying? When are they saying it? What kind of relationship do they really have with their staff? When's the last time you politely asked, how are things going, without any attachment, or doing something for someone without any attachment? When's the last time you just served someone because you're a business owner that wants to take care of your staff? And those of you thinking, I don't have time for that, everybody doesn't have time for something that they can make an excuse on. But think about how it will make them feel to stop by and really have an honest, authentic conversation with someone about something they want to discuss. And then when they're more comfortable, they'll actually say, hey, doc, not sure I understand the cause and effect. They may not use those words, but hey, doc, I don't understand why you're getting angry, because this is the way I was trained. So then the leader gets a chance to look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what? I haven't shown Sharon and Steve exactly how to do this. It's on me. And then if you're really courageous, these little words come out. I'm sorry, Sharon. I didn't do a good enough job letting you and Steve know exactly how I want this done. Now, you can't do it right now because Mrs. Smith is in the chair, or Mr. Fitzgerald's in the chair, or whatever, and you can't take time now, but make time. So none of this stuff is difficult. It's a desire issue, guys. It's, do you want to make the people around you better? Own your leadership and lean in. No one's going to leave. Kelly and I chatted offline before about how do we make sure that our staff stays around? Well, are you focused on, go ahead,
I want
Kelly.
to jump in on that, Greg, because some of my friends on here, in one or two online today, in today's environment, particularly in dentistry, finding good help is hard. And so they're afraid to have a courageous conversation with a coworker or employee, because they're afraid of what will happen if they leave. Can I find someone to replace? But what's the negatives and the positives of maybe keeping someone around? Because sometimes, you know, my dad gave me great advice, and he was a steel worker, hardworking, blue collar man. But he said, hey, never take on a project unless you have time for a project. And what I mean by that is there are some people that it's just too much dang work. And you've invested a lot of time, and you realize, you know, there's no way I'm playing pro golf no matter how much I play, right? I practice, I do everything, but I'm just not going to be a pro golfer. It's time to move on.
I've seen you play, and I concur.
Yeah. And when does a leader, you started this now, you know I'm going to come back later.
Yeah.
But when does a leader decide that, hey, enough's enough? You know, I've had these conversations. We've set out goals. We've set out expectations. We've had a few of these conversations. When's it time to cut bait?
Well, my answer to that is you lean in, you have these conversations we're talking about this evening, and you allow them to be the best they can. And sometimes the best just isn't, their best isn't good enough. And that comes through what you said earlier around reviews. But more often than not, an employee who just isn't the right fit ends up behaving their way right out of a job. And that's when you just say, it looks like you're not happy here. It looks like you just don't get it. And there's affirmation, and you part quickly, and then you hopefully you have bench strength, as I call it, or minor leagues, and you have someone that can fill the role. If not, in my humble opinion, it's much better to have a vacancy than having someone there that isn't all in.
I totally agree. I'm so glad to hear you say that.
I'm helping a client right now. I can't use the name of the organization, but let's just say it's a big hospital, and the second in charge in this one particular area is hoping to receive the position, and his focus on the interviews is all around how do we recruit and retain. So as we're going through the preparation for all of his interviews, how do we get more diversity in our recruitment? Where do we find people that we haven't looked for before? And why would that be important? And I don't mean diversity for diversity's sake. I mean diversity in ways of thinking, problem solving, perceptions. And then the retention, my point is, if we're focused on retaining instead of replacing, we end up treating people differently. We want them in our organization, and we show them that how? By the way we relate, by the way we behave, by the way we language, the words we use. You know when you're being kind and considerate. You know when you're being forthright. You know when you're coming from a place of integrity. And people sniff that out when you're not. So
we've got a good friend from Ohio online, and I'm hoping he's hearing this real loud and clear, because this is difficult conversation to have when you have expectations with a teammate and they just aren't doing it, right? And doing nothing, you're not helping your team.
Not at all. And you're not helping yourself. You're not helping your bottom line. You're going to look like this person on the screen, whether it's you or the person you're coming home to. And all of a sudden he or she is looking at you going, you complain, you be about this person all the time. Why don't you do something about it? And what your spouse or partner or good friend is really saying is, why don't you have the courage to have a conversation?
Yep.
Because the sooner you do, the better the relationship is going to be, or the sooner it's going to be over. And ladies and gentlemen, it's okay to let people off your ship. Do not take their stuff and allow it to be in your backpack. It's your backpack. It's your climb. And the more crap you have in there that's not serving you or your practice, the heavier it's going to get, the more irritated you're going to be, and the less effective you're going to be, and the longer it'll take you to get to the top. So a lot of analogies there. I apologize, but it's
all good stuff.
Okay. Well, this is the way a lot of us show up when we don't know exactly what to do next. We're good at making lists. We're good at having the easy conversations, but we get emotional. It gets in our gut. It gets in our heart. Sometimes we can't breathe. Sometimes we make all sorts of excuses of why we need to go for a walk. We come back and the same you know what is still standing right in front of us. So what's the first thing you need to do? You need to process. Because if you just fire back at somebody, you just dump it on them, you're literally, and if you think about it from an internal toxic waste or a big mountain of toxic waste, and my stepfather is all about toxic waste. He's a professional geologist by training. I'm sure he's looking at this slide going, I think I can help Greg make this look better. But when we dump it, we pollute the environment. And that's not cool. It really isn't. But then when we hold it in, because we think we're serving somebody by not saying something, guess what happens? It implodes in ourself, or it leaks out, and sometimes in a very uncomfortable time frame. And again, let your mind race.
Yeah, and it's a common mistake that leaders make is they let too many things blow up or build up, if you will. And I always say, if it takes you more than a minute to tell me your problem, you've got more than one problem, right? And so one of the common mistakes that I would say leaders make is they let too much build up and then they go toxic on their employee. So you might come to the morning huddle when one person was late, but that one person was important. In the morning huddle might go, you all are late all the time and it drives me crazy. You can't be late, when really it's one person, which is wrong. So everyone, always, never, 3 words I don't like, because there's nobody that always does something or never does something. I don't believe that at all. And so be careful not to throw this toxic waste, on your employees. And I don't know that it necessarily fits in here, Greg, but also as an owner of a business, you can't let what's going on in your outside world come into your professional world when you're at work. So if you're caught in traffic and you get the wrong Starbucks order and your kid didn't have their homework ready and then tells you that today is costume day or whatever's going on and you're all messed up, and then you come to work and take it out on your team, that's a bad thing, right?
Amen.
And I had one of my best role models in Marriott. I think I told this story before, but if he came in about 3 or 4 days just in a real crappy mood, he was never a bad mood kind of guy. And after about 3rd or 4th day, I just went up to him and I said, Mark, I am glad you're in a bad mood, because now all of us can be too, right? Because it's going to be contagious. You got to decide what kind of attitude you want your team to catch. You are the role model.
Well, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, because in my opinion, you cannot, you should not, and if you do, you're making a mistake. Bring your home problems, your traffic problems, your financial problems into your business or into your opportunity to be a leader. And I call it a transition period. Whether it's the minute you open the door, when you park your car and you've got 20 or 25 steps before you get to your building, when you open that car door, you need to click and say, all of it stays in the car.
Anytime.
Or when I touch the handle of the door that leads into my business, it's a transition time. Or if you need those 25 steps, again, walk back to your car. Breathe in through your nose and out your mouth. I mean, the people in your practice, the practice that is your lifeblood, do not deserve you to show up like a bomb ready to go off. And it's not cool. Now we say, hey, this is my business. I can act however I want. They're going to stay around. No, they're not. They will find other work. They'll find other leaders to follow.
Well, and that brings me to a point that kind of parallels here is that doctors, you can be fired. Yes, you own the business. But Dr. Paxton, I see you looking online. Can you be fired by your team? The answer is absolutely. And it's when they quit. When a good employee quits because of lack of leadership, you got fired. When a patient leaves your practice, you're not communicating effectively. Now, sometimes it's good riddance. Don't get me wrong. But when you are losing staff that left you or losing patients, we're not communicating on their level, and everybody's different. And one of the things that Greg and I both agree on, part of being a good leader is good follower. So good leadership, good fellowship. If you get your teams in the best direction, then your job becomes easier because you just have to follow their lead.
Yep, said that very phrase today. Most great leaders have been great followers at some point. So back to this mind and toxic waste. We've talked about emotions. We're in shift number 3. We've spoken about what not to do. Don't dump, don't hold. So obviously the one on the right is process. Think about where you are, what's going on, and you can shift immediately if you want to. In this particular area, you can change your emotion in a nanosecond. And if you can't, take a breath, go for a walk, and process and create new energy. And for me, removing myself from the screen, going for a walk, looking at my child and saying to myself, does it really matter? Do I need to be right? Do I need to be loving? And if I don't know, then it's best for me just to say, hey guys, Dad needs a minute. And as a leader, you can say the same thing, or you can just tell them like that, and they'll understand where you're going. If you don't know Viktor Frankl, he has done and said so many great things during his lifetime. And one of my favorite quotes is this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. In that response lies our growth and happiness. I want you to think about, if you can, take a screenshot of this, because here is the secret. When you become stimulated, when you become triggered, and before you respond, there's this beautiful space. Take an opportunity and know your choice. What you decide to do next in that space will determine your growth, their growth, and happiness for all. And it happens hundreds of times a week. But if you know you're being triggered, know you've been stimulated in a way that you're uncomfortable, and before you just dump or you hold, please give this some thought.
Yeah, and some of you have heard me talk. I call it the SPR theory, stimulus, pause, response. And humans are the only ones that have the ability to pause before we react to stimulus. For example, you take a cat sitting by a chair wagging its tail, and a rocking chair, let me get this going here the right direction, right? Get a rocking chair and it hits that tail, that's pain, that's a response, and the cat takes off, right? Greg and I get in a disagreement and he pops me in the nose, that's pain. But before I respond, I think, do I want to hit him back? Do I want to run? Why did he do it? I don't care. And it might be a nanosecond that it happens, but I have that ability to create that space. And it's what only humans have that ability. And so I've never seen it in this way, Greg, but it's dead on.
Yeah, and it's beautiful that you brought that up, because we are not animals. We are an evolved species, and we have the opportunity to serve and guide and lead and elevate others. And if you think about some of the stuff that's going on in the world today, if half of the people then are responding the way they are today would just breathe, imagine where we could be. So,
well, if you think of how you can use stimulus to your advantage as well, or at least to help somebody, stimulus can be something like, if you've got a patient in the chair, are you having sensitivity to hot or cold or sweets or pressure? Those questions are stimulus to make them think, as opposed to saying, are you having any problems? So if I say, Greg, are you having any problems with your presentation? Or are you having any problems? You could be thinking, well, I don't have a tank of gas, or I don't have enough money, or whatever. I want to focus in on what I want to lead the patient to. So in the chair, if I say, are you having any problems? The only problem a patient thinks is pain. But if I ask them, are you having sensitivity to hot, cold, sweets, pressure? That creates the mind thinking in a different way. How many of you have gone to a grocery store with 3 things in your mind you're going to get and come out with 100? Because you walk up and down the aisle and it stimulates what you're going to buy. So there's all kinds of triggers. Anna says to me all the time, I can never send you to Target or Staples because everything costs $100. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, you go there for Staples and buy boxes, file cabinets, a new chair, some widget you don't need. Or if I go to Target to pick up paper towels, I buy a picture frame and 5 other things and a blanket I didn't even know I needed because it's there. And that's all stimulus. It's on purpose. So as a business owner, think about what stimulus are you even providing to your team? Do they have a comfortable chair to sit in? Do they have the tools to do the job? Is the lighting correct? Is their monitor bad? I'm sitting here looking, and as we're talking, I text Anna and said, I need a light because I realize I'm like in the shadows, And I said, I need a light for these presentations after dark because I feel like I'm, in the dark here. But think about the stimulus that you're providing so that you can get the desired response you want. And again, if you provide the right stimulus, ask the right questions, you will get to a better place.
Yeah. Yeah. And well said. And I would recommend that maybe when you go to Target, you send someone else in to get the light and you stay in the car.
Well, I do a lot. Anna's got me shopping online, so it cuts all that stuff out.
Oh, God bless her. Because I was going to say, I know a coach that might be able to help you with some of this. All right. So shift number 4, one of the most difficult ones in all of communication, regardless of what communication we're talking, but specifically around courageous conversation, is listen to understand and to feel the point of view and not to be understood. It's not about you. You can't listen about you. You have to listen about them. And just listen to get an understanding of where they're coming from. Remember, empathy is part of this, and that's the start of it. And as you listen with your eyes too. Be present. Lean in. Let the person know, I'm here. I'm not asking you rub noses or cheekbones I'm just asking you to be present and look the person in the eye when you're communicating with them. It's amazing. And again, I'm not asking you to have a staring contest, but it's the little things done over and over and over that will provide you the best results. And how we listen is critical.
And for our doctors on there, you've got a new challenge when you're trying to communicate and connect with your patients, that you're wearing a mask, you're wearing a shield, you're wearing a gown, you're wearing a cap. And so you're blocked more than ever. Fun little tip that I do, get a nice 8x10 of you, have it on the counter in the operatory, have it on your computer monitor so I can say, hey, this is me in normal situation, but here I am behind the mask. And again, your eyes right now are going to be really doing all the talking for you.
It's amazing. That's a great point. And you think of something that's a relative today that wasn't before March 8th and how important these are. And by the way, I can't see your eyes, Kelly, because you're in the dark, but I know how beautiful they are. I've seen you up close. So
I'm going to Target as soon as we leave.
I can't imagine you going anywhere else. So reflective listening, what is beneath, what is said underneath the words? What's going on inside that person? And imagine if you've gone through this webinar and you're embarking on a difficult conversation that you know is taking courage from the other person. Having gone through this now, you can actually lean in and say, hey, Allie, what's really going on? It isn't about my pink shirt, is it? No, it's the tone of your voice, Greg, and it's driving me nuts. Well, if I ask her a question, it might be easier for her to answer it versus waiting for her to be courageous, because this person waiting for someone to be courageous with their arm is only making it more difficult for her. You're just intimidating her. But if you ask a few things about you that you know you can work on, your pink shirt might be okay, but it's the way you speak. It's driving me nuts. All right, well, maybe we should email more often then. I use this as an example because it's us as leaders trying to be better and putting it on ourselves to do the work instead of, they work for me, they must understand me. You're the ruler, you're the manager. Congratulations. And I hope you have a nice day with that.
Greg, on that note, do you have, and this again, totally off, and for everyone who's listening, Greg and I didn't prep for this. I let Greg do Greg because he's great at it. But Greg, do you by chance have any kind of survey that staff can fill out on the leader as strengths, weaknesses, things of that nature? Have you developed any of that in your tools that we could make available?
I can do one better. It's called How Am I Perceived? And it's an opportunity, and I believe it would work perfectly in their practices, because it allows the doctor and the ownership to, first of all, look in the mirror and ask themselves, how do I believe I'm perceived? What qualities and attributes describe me, Kelly Schwartz, or Greg Aden, or Allison Hall? Then you list those 10, 12 attributes. And then you ask your staff to also share how they believe you are perceived, meaning their perception of you. Now, sure, you could do this in a boardroom and just fire away if you're that courageous. But what'll happen is they probably won't speak how you are perceived in a group setting. Now, what you owe them is the instructions, and it's all part of my kit that I've put together, is you picked them, and it may not be just staff. It could be older children. It could be past colleagues. It could be past clients. You just want their truth. And you're selecting people in this model that you know will be honest. Because the only way we're going to grow as leaders is if we get the honest input. And happy to share that with you, Kelly. For no charge, I'll send you the master. You can send it out to all of your clients and have fun with it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. Speaking of listening, you can't argue with the Dalai Lama. You just can't. Look at this guy. Love this good dude. But he basically says, when you talk, you're only repeating what you already know. When you listen, you may just listen. You may just learn something new. So another one to take back. So why would we want to do this? Why would we want to understand what courageous conversations are about? Why would we even want to have a seminar on this? Why would we want to be better communicators? You can read these as well as anyone, but we become more confident. We become more prepared. And when we're prepared, we are more likely to communicate at a much higher level. A lot of people like to play in the world of expectation. I don't. I like to live in the world of agreement. If I expect you to do something and I'm pointing at you, says Mr. and Mrs. Leader, two things are going to happen. You're going to get your expectations met, good for you, neutral, or you're going to be disappointed. And now someone's either in trouble or you're going to go back to the seminar and said, wait a minute, I didn't get an agreement. I pointed the finger and had an expectation. We've already talked about resolving conflict quickly. If you haven't heard anything that will help improve your relationships, you're either not paying attention or I need to go back to the drawing board. But I guarantee you there's 10 things that have been discussed tonight to help you have better relationships. And you will be more productive. It's irrefutable. Then if you are more efficient with your word, more people can listen to you and understand exactly where you're coming from. If you're more courageous, you will save time. And when you save time, typically, especially dentists, you're going to make more money and you'll be more productive. And then for those of you that really care, in my world, having peace of mind is what it's all about. When I feel better, I'm more productive. When I feel better, I'm more kind and I'm more considerate. And I can understand people better. That's why you want to make these shifts. And so here they are. You know, it's how we behave. It's how we're aware, what's going on around us, why we're doing this. We understand our own emotions, and we listen. We listen to understand. We listen with our eyes, and we lean into the relationships. And then, Kelly, this is my last one here. It just, where does it leave you? When we are prepared and having courageous conversations, there's more engagement with our staff. There's more engagement with our spouse. There's more engagement with our kids. There's more clarity in our word. There's more clarity in our conversation. We become a much better listener. We become more valuable to everybody in our life. And if you think about your children or what you were like when you were a child, it's just so cool to be curious. It's so cool to want to know why. And when you are, the person in front of you says, wait a minute, they're asking questions about me. They want and need something from me. Now, how do you think that makes the other person feel? So with some courage, mix in a little curiosity, have better conversations, be more productive, have better relationships, and then walk away from your job knowing I left everything on the table today. And I guarantee you, people will say, where's George been? Where did all this come from? Why is he clear and concise with his word now? Where did this courage come from? And why don't you be responsible for that, leader, by helping them understand some of the things we talked about tonight? I would love to work with Kelly, you and a particular group of docs, one particular practice. I don't care. Whatever anyone on the line needs, you know how to reach me. It's greg@adenleadership.com, or you can go to my website, adenleadership.com, or better yet, call Kelly Schwartz. If he's not at Target or Staples, I'm sure he'll get right back to you.
So yeah, you know, Greg, this is just awesome. I so want to do more with you. And for those of you that are listening, if you want more or something specific, go onto our Facebook page, Schwartz Consulting Group, shoot me a text. You can find our information on our website, kellyschwartz.com. We will post this entire seminar or webinar on our YouTube page. But reach out to us and let us know. And Greg and I will put something together to meet your specific wants or needs. If you're interested in having Greg be a leadership coach with you personally, with you and or for your team, again, reach out to us. We are always there to help you. You know, I appreciate everybody's time tonight. We like to be respectful of that. We know you've had a long day, but you've got so much more information in you. And I'd like to go down some of these holes with you on different slides. You and I getting together could talk forever, I know, but it's just so great to have you, Greg. I'm really proud of what you've done. Joy, you've done a great job raising that young man. I've known him a long time. He's a good guy, real good guy. Greg, thank you. Thank you to all of our friends and clients that are on here today. If you have questions, reach out to us. Let us know what we can do to make things better. We're always here to help. So if I'm going to open up the unmute everybody if I can here. Participants, I am gonna, let's see.
While you're doing that, Kelly, most of the people online are your friends, your clients, your colleagues. And again, it's courageous for you to bring someone else into your world to share input. And I just want to recognize you for allowing me the opportunity to give. I just am very, very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, I can't unmute everybody, so unmute yourself. If you have a question, Greg and I can stick around, take those calls. Just click the unmute button and we should be good to go if you'd like. Sorry, I don't know how to unmute everybody all at once. A few things I haven't learned yet. So any questions from anyone that we can help you with?
I'll be coming off shortly. Why?
I'm sorry. Somebody came in. I didn't hear. Maybe it was just talking, not realized. Okay. Any questions? All right, Greg, thank you very much as always. Thank you to everyone who jumped online. And we hope you have a blessed week. And if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us.
George,
Okay?
I have one quick thing.
Oh, yes, sir.
while you've been talking, it's reminded me of an issue that came in my life just recently. As you know, Greg, my best friend Tim died just recently of COVID. And as I was watching all the things that came in to him, there were something like 400 comments from people that talked about him. And his leadership just became so obvious to me. And I got to thinking, what made him such a great leader? And I've known him since we were 4 years old. But anyway, I got to thinking, and there was one word that came to my mind, and that word is grace. Sometimes you hear, there but for the grace of God go I, or Hail Mary full of grace. Anyway, I looked it up, and it was the personification of Tim. It simply says, I give while expecting nothing in return. And
Amen.
that was him. I mean, he was the best baseball player. He was the smartest guy, had wonderful children, had 400 followers. And I had to thinking, what is it? Yeah, Tim. He was always giving. He never expected anything in return. That doesn't mean that he let anybody ever walk over him. I guarantee you that, because he could hit a golf ball 200 yards without thinking about it. But anyway, I just thought I'd pass
Thank
that
you.
along, because you guys were also showing that you have grace. You give without expecting things in return, which means simply that you're giving people the opportunity to improve.
Right.
Amen.
I thought I'd say
Thank you, George.
Okay.
All right. I will, unless there's any other questions or comments, I'll say goodnight. Again, Kelly, thank you. And to all that are on the program tonight, if you need me for anything, reach out. I'll see you soon.
Greg, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right,
And
my friend.
there's somebody I'm trying to get information to here real quick. Deb, if you're still online, I just, let's see, edit, paste. Deb, if you will just email me directly, kelly@kellyschwartz.com. I'll make sure you get that link. But it is on YouTube. It's just SCG Dental Consulting is where all our links are. So you can get that, but just let me know.
Good night, all.
Thank you.